Hi. Today we're going to talk mostly about the assignment. I want to go over it in some detail to help you along. All right, so the final project is going to be a cookie clicker game. And some of you have probably looked at or played a cookie clicker before, but I want to go over some of the details here um, at this website. So here's a cookie clicker. Cats are running around in my house and tripping up people. Anyway, so there's a bakery, there's a number of cookies you've produced, and there's a rate they get produced. Um, the basic way to produce them is to click on the cookie. So I click and see the numbers go up. But once you get enough cookies, you can also buy uh, something that produces more cookies for you. So this cursor automatically clicks, and so it produces cookies automatically. And here's the number of cursors that are going. We're not going to animate them and have them line up and stuff like that. So they're producing cookies. And then when you have enough cookies, you can buy next level tools. And they also produce cookies, and presumably this is a stronger thing. And at a certain point, you unlock an additional tool. You don't know what it is, even so you don't even know if you can buy it. I will actually know how much it costs here, I guess. But the main elements is a display of number of cookies, the display of the rate for the cookies, some kind of something that moves a little bit, and then a few buttons. All right. So our version is going to be a little different, more, well, still beautiful in its own way. So here we have 0 cookies per second. And again, it's not like 10 decimal digits here. And I can, instead of clicking on the image, I could make this a button and click on it, set it as a label, but I'm gonna just have a click button here. So I click, and I get cookies, right? And when I get enough of them, I can buy a cursor. I'm following the model here. I want you to come up with your own theme. And now there's some small amount of cookies per second, and it slowly goes up. So let's make this go a little faster. Oh, you know what I did? I was messing around and I turned that off. And well, normally when you click on this for the first time, the next level unlocks, so you can see it. But I won't worry about that. But the other thing you might notice is that all of a sudden, as the rate of cookies goes up, this is starting to do something weird here. I don't know what's going on here. Notice I can barely click enough now to kind of keep up. The other thing is the cost of these tools go up each time you use them. So they get more expensive, but they also produce a little bit more. Um, and what we have here is actually the cookies rotating along with the rate of this. So, you should invent some visual that sort of is both interesting and maybe meaningful. All right, enough of that sad thing. But basically, when I clicked that, this one should have unlocked. And then the first time I click this one, this hidden one unlocks. I was messing around with the locking and unlocking of buttons. All right, we cancel that and bring this back. So there's our cookie clicker. So how are we going to do this? When you see something like this, you got to think about there's two parts. One is there's the user interface element, and that's going to be some buttons and panels and things connected together. And then there's going to be, the game mechanics itself. And those are in some ways two different things. So what does the game need to store? All right. And obviously it needs to store enough information to display stuff, but also to keep track of like how far we've progressed in the game. So we need to store as an instance variable of some class, right? So this application is going to be some class. And in there, an instance variable number of cookies, and this rate kind of thing, cookies per second. Although we're going to be doing it with a timer update, so it's probably easier to think about it as just like per update instead of per second. And in fact, I'm not sure my numbers were accurate like that either. There's these tool costs that are changing, and so there's the cost of the tool, And then there's how much, when you buy one of these, does it change the rate here, right? So buying a tool adds to this rate, and then every time the game updates, this rate gets added to the total number of cookies. Every time you buy a tool, you subtract from the total number of cookies if there's enough available. You can't go negative, right? So the basic interaction is you click on this click button. That I should have called that like add a cookie or something like that, right? And that adds one to the number of cookies. If you click on a tool, you need to check the cost against that amount there, and if there's enough, you add the cookies per second to the game cookies per second and increase this cost for the next time. Oops. And to do this, this is a button, this is a button, this is a button, this is a button. When you click on a button, it should have a signal. There's going to be the clicked signal that connects to a slot. So each one of these needs a slot in the class or a method of the class. And in there, you should update the cookies per second, update the cost of the next click, update the production of the next click, and unlock the next level, either over and over again or do it once. So a button has a set disabled method, and you set it to true to make it gray out and not be usable. And that way you can't use it like, or you can't, if you haven't used the bakery yet, you can't jump ahead and use this thing here. And of course, you can just have a question mark there, and then there's that set text method that allows you to say what it actually is when it gets unlocked. So when you click on an earlier button, its job is also to unlock this next one and set the text to something meaningful. Now the question is, we just sit there and the number of cookies goes up automatically, at least once you have some tools in play. And so we're going to use a queue timer. We used a queue timer before to make my image flip back and forth at different rates. And this time we're going to connect it to the game update. And really this game update is where all that sort of the main sort of cookie stuff goes on. So here it's saying wait 100 milliseconds and then call a game update. Wait another 100 milliseconds and call a game update. And in there you're going to change the values of the cookies and change the labels of the text to update their current status. So, again, we said we had to store some information, and you shouldn't, use these in necessarily exactly like this, but especially if you make a game that's not cookie production, but some other kind of production. And so let's say they were set at some initial or some current value, like 1,010. Then every time the game is updated by the timer, in that update code, you're basically going to add to the current number of cookies the production rate, and that'll go up, right? So it's saying how many new cookies are made each time. So in some ways, that's the game mechanics, right? Like what happens with these values and how they get updated. The other part is sort of making how the thing looks. So how the user interface is structured. And so, this is a pretty basic structure, but it's not displeasing. It's not like, super fancy looking or anything like that. So what do we need to make this kind of layout? Well, you're going to inherit from queue main window. So you make a class that's a custom class, inherits from queue main window. And I had a prior lecture doing an example of this, so you should look at that. And in there, I had a menu bar. It just has a quit in there. You don't need a menu bar. You don't need to add a menu bar. Then there's that central widget idea, which basically says this main window has its main spot to hold information. And for that, we made a queue frame. And in that queue frame, you can see there are two other queue frames arranged in a vertical layout. There's this chunk followed by this chunk, all going down, right? And again, we have to practice or look carefully or sketch out how you think these things should get broken down. Like, you may have thought like, well, let's do queue frame this way in a vertical layout, and then figure out how that works. But to me, I see there's a chunk here and there's a chunk here, and those two are stacked on top of each other. So this queue frame is going to have a vertical layout, and in that vertical layout are going to be these two queue frames. Then the top one has a horizontal layout on it and has two queue labels in there, right? So queue labels can show text or images. And this other Q frame, this larger one, has also a horizontal layout, and attached to it are a button and a label where we've set a sort of a preferred size. And then another Q frame of buttons with a vertical layout and the 3 buttons attached in that vertical layout. All right, so again, you're like, you can kind of see that and you can kind of think like, okay, I could break this and do this and do this. And the thing you have to remember is each one of those things you have to make. So when I keep talking about there being a Q frame with a horizontal layout in it, and there's 3 things in there, a button, a label, and another Q frame, you have to write code that produces those things, right? And it's not that hard, but there's a lot of pieces, and in some ways it's actually easy to forget like which layout you're talking about. So you should name these things kind of carefully, like, hey, there should be a top layout that sets this top Q frame, and then there should be a bottom layout that sets the bottom Q frame layout, and there could be a button layout that sets the button layout or something like that. So anyway, don't just say layout 1, layout 2, layout 3, because you're going to get yourself all confused. And so give them some names and then try to build it up. You don't have to do it all at once. I would maybe make something that, you can make 3 buttons and put them in a layout and then see if you can show them on the screen. And then add that whole thing to another layout. Again, it's layers, right? Frames has a layout, and then to the layout you attach things, and each one of those can also have its own layout and its own things. So it's this levels of building these things up. And you're building it up with code rather than dragging and dropping and grouping. So a lot of interactive programs allow you to group pieces together, and this is sort of the same idea. A layout is a grouping, but it also says how it lays out. You can kind of think of this as files and folders. So you have on your computer, there's folders, and inside a folder is another folder, and you get this hierarchy of sort of organization. And it's just a similar kind of concept here. Okay, so you're gonna have a custom class that's a QMain window, and in it you're gonna set up some instance variables, and then you're gonna set up this setup UI and build up all these frames and layouts together. And when I say all of them, I mean really I'm talking about 1, 2, 3. There's 4 Q frames I think in this one, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 layouts, 8 lines of code. So not so brutal, right? Okay. These things are labels, Q labels. And a lot of times a Q label is just some text, often in support of some other element. You're describing what your person is seeing on the screen. Here the Q label is really the main thing. So we're displaying the current value of the cookies and the cookies per second and so on. And as you did in the lab with the loan calculator, what is the cat doing? You want to control how it looks. So for example, this cookies per second is very easily going to get something with 16 digits long, all 1.19652 blah 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 blah, and the whole frame is going to be changing around if it's hitting a whole number every once in a while and shrinking down to sort of fit it, and then getting real big for that big number and then shrinking down and fitting. So you want to use that string formatting we used in lab to kind of make that look nicer, right? So we want to avoid this kind of issue here where we just take a number and slap it on the screen. And again, this sort of repeating the lab, but basically we use this kind of funny notation that you use curly brace with some numbers, and that says put the first thing in this list, or really just this set of formats, into this place here. We place it, and we place this one with this one here, right? And then we added in some formatting here to basically say give it 5 spaces, and then make sure there's not a lot of decimal points. And if you just make this number here in your game should be big, because the whole thrill, if there is any thrill to a cookie clicker, is these numbers get really big, right? And they start scoring really fast. And so don't think of it just being holding space for 1,000 cookies or 10,000 cookies. Make it a big number that can hold a billion cookies or something like that. So 9 digits, 12 digits, something like that. and give yourself plenty of space. But by making it a fixed minimum size, it won't be jumping up and back and forth as the numbers change. It'll always be like those 12 digits, and on the screen that will be a fixed amount of space, and so it won't bounce around in an unpleasant way. Okay, so the formatting is important for making it look pleasant. Okay, let's just look at the assignment requirements briefly. I've tried to pare this down quite a bit because we don't have that much time. I'm aware of that we kind of, anyway, there's not that much time left. So it's an optional partner assignment. When you submit it on Gradescope as a way of saying my partner was so and so, please do that. So we don't have to like say, oh, these two people copied from each other, and then realize that, oh, you're partners. Go ahead and look at the cookie clicker. You should, and you should be using PYQT5. So this is not just some random tool set. This is using the stuff we've been talking about for the last few weeks. It really should probably, try to think of something besides a cookie clicker, something else you can produce, something, it should be weird and humorous and stuff like that, right? So whatever you want is fine. And in the description here, when I say cookie, I really just mean for a cookie clicker kind of game. So you should work a little bit to make an attractive layout. If you just had a cookie clicker game and everything was just in one long vertical layout, I'm not thinking you're exploring the potential of PYQT5 enough. So you need that layering kind of thing of this and then that, and get it all set up kind of nice. You need to display the current cookie count and cookies per second in an attractive way, using that formatting kind of stuff from the Lone Lab 14. There should be a click button or an image of something that you click, but something you can click yourself to increase the production or the number of things produced, the cookies. And again, that's going to mean there's going to be some sort of connection made between the click signal of the button and some slot in the class that actually adds one and then makes things update. The game should have a timer that updates the cookie counts. So you don't want it to go like hyperspeed, but 10 times a second is probably a nice, exciting, fast pace. And every time that timer goes off, the number of cookies should change, should be updated. Somewhere you need some kind of image of the thing you're producing. So I had a cookie, and it should do something interesting. So I rotated it, but I think there's plenty of other things you can do. Make it bounce big and small, bounce around the screen. Please try to do something just a little bit interesting there. You can ask for help if you have an idea or you're not sure where to go with it. And again, we had both let's see, we drew on a label. I'm actually just thinking we might have cut that lab out. So now that I'm looking at this one more time, I got to think about let me review that one more time, and then I'll either update the assignment or figure something out here, because I suddenly think we skipped that lab where we were drawing things like following generally on the screen. So anyway, hold on a little bit. The game should have some sequence of tools. So they're basically buttons. And again, when you click on a tool, you want to see if you can buy it based on the current cookie count, and then basically change the tool more expensive and make it produce more things as well. So you can do different things, like make it 10 more expensive each time. I made it like 10% more expensive. So I multiplied it by 1.1. So it kind of got a little bit bigger, and then a little bigger next time, a little bigger next time, and so on. And when you click on a tool, it should unlock the next level. So please add some comments to help us understand your code. And then add a comment at the top that says what your theme is, just so we understand, is this a cookie? Is this a pumpkin? What exactly is going on here? And then make a short movie, with a phone or screen capture. And I would say, also make the game go, like, change the update rate to be 60, 10 millisecond delay instead of 100 or something. Make it go faster so you can at least like unlock a level or something like that and not have it take too long. Make it start off with 1,000 cookies so you can buy stuff right away or something like that. and then submit all that. And this is due the last day of classes, but I'm also allowing submission up to a week after with no penalty. So, and also you can drop an assignment based on the syllabus. So you should think about what, how you're doing in the class, and for example, if you're credit non-credit, and decide whether or not this is something you want to take on right now or not. I think it's kind of fun, and hopefully you'd enjoy doing it. But I understand there's a lot going on towards the end of the semester, so I'm not trying to. I don't want to discourage you from taking advantage of that if you want to. Okay, so that's basically it. I got to think about this image thing a little bit. So I think anyway. Don't be surprised if that looks different when you look at the actual assignment. All right. We'll catch up soon. Bye.